So our golden year scenario was not gradual. In 2016, my husband's diagnosis of younger onset Alzheimer's disease at the age of 50 really thrust us into immediate action. So there was immediate medical retirement and getting our affairs in order, followed by wills, trusts, power of attorneys, and towards the end of our 28th year of being married, I received legal paperwork that gave me guardianship of my husband, who was then in the late stages of dementia. At the age of 50, we were not looking or even concerned about dementia. After forgetting our 20th wedding anniversary, we really chalked his forgetting up to a memory lapse and just really being overworked. So we weren't looking for dementia. Then the 21st wedding anniversary came, and it was the same. He had completely forgotten the day completely, and that's not something he would do. He had always planned big, elaborate wedding anniversary celebrations, and the 20th came and he didn't know, and then the 21st came and he didn't know. So we started to look for what it might be, and it just took time. It took time to get an answer. So dementia can look like depression. It can mimic depression. And so you don't have to have all the warning signs, and you don't have to have them all the time to warrant seeing a doctor. So if you notice any of the signs, be sure, if you see them in yourself or someone in your family, talk to someone you trust, see a doctor, and get information. Now we're going to talk about caregiving. So whether you're perfectly healthy, facing dementia, or any chronic illness, this quote from Rosalind Carter rings true. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. The caregiver journey will have many different looks. It can be temporary, as in the event of a surgery, a fall, or a brief illness. Caregiving may be remote, as you care for a loved one over an electronic device or even Ring cameras. And caregiving may be long-term due to a chronic illness or a progressive diagnosis. As we age and lose parents, we may become caregivers to our siblings. There are role reversals as adult children become caregivers of their parents. No matter what the makeup of your caregiving story, it's going to be unique and important and will likely involve some challenges. So it's going to be helpful to have a care plan. With that care plan, you're going to need to expand the caregiving team with trusted family and friends. So when Jose was diagnosed, the doctor said, "Lady, you have been all over this hospital and you have made us turn over every stone." And because I did, I said, "You're not going to diagnose my husband in 5 minutes. That's not going to happen at Walter Reed." I said, "He just got back from Liberia. Could it be anything from Liberia?" And they said, "Well, it could be." And I said, "Well, then we should look." And so they said, "All right, we promise you we're not going to leave a stone unturned." And so they did one PET scan. And I said, "Well, what's the gold standard for a PET scan?" They said, "Amyloid PET scan." I said, "Well, let's do that kind." And they're like, "Lady." And I was just reading and fighting. And so then after the amyloid PET scan confirmed, as much confirmation as you're going to get, the doctor said, "All right, now you're going to have to go get familiar with this disease." I said, "What do you suggest?" He said, "I suggest you read the 36-hour day." I told the nurses I'm not coming back to the hospital for 3 days. It was a long weekend. I said I got some reading to do. And I came back that Tuesday, because it was a long weekend. And they were going to give the formal diagnosis to our family and then his command, because they needed to know. So at the table, they said, "Well, what are your thoughts?" And I said, "Well, I read the book that you told me to read, and the book says that he's going to remember how he is treated and how events made him feel longer than he's going to remember the event." And I said, "Every time we've sat at this table, you have given him something that has sealed his fate. And I'm asking you not to retire him at the table like you've been doing with every other service member. I'm going to ask you to give him the full retirement, the full general officer retirement that he deserves. And I'm going to ask you to stop what you're doing at this table and change the trajectory of everything he's experienced so far. And they're like, okay, when would you like the retirement? I said 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And they did it. The Surgeon General was there and able to give him that kind of closure. So your advocacy in caregiving starts immediately. Remember, caregiving is you are just trying to help somebody that you care about navigate through illness or difficulty or a chronic disease. That's what caregiving is. You're trying to help somebody who needs your help. And it can be your child, it can be your parent, it could be your mother, it could be your father, it could be your sibling. So you want to build a team. And the doctor said, lady, if you keep fighting this way, you're not going to make it. This disease is going to get ahead of you, and you're not going to make it. Lady, you need a team. I got my phone out, and I sent a text. The doctor says we're going to die if we don't need a team. Do you want to be on our team? And I just sent it out to some people. And when we came back, he was diagnosed at Walter Reed. When we came back to Kansas, we had a team of family, friends, faith members, and the community that have rallied behind us. They've never left. They've never left. A lot of people will lose people. We have not. I can't tell you who's not here because there's so many people that are that I don't even worry about who's left. Because the people that once they found out and said, we're going to support you, we're going to be here with you, have never left. And that's the same thing that any care team can have. Just reach out and be honest and let people know what you need. People cannot help you if they do not know what you need. And so you will have to find a voice to share your specific needs. So develop a plan early before the conditions deteriorate, while the person can weigh in, while they can have some input. So the earlier in whatever stage of disease they are in, the earlier that they're able to weigh in, the more input they can have. Recognize your own personal limits and boundaries. Everybody will have them. You have to know what your limits and boundaries are, and encourage independence for as long as possible. So early in the diagnosis, I asked Jose, what's the most important thing to you on this journey? You know, we're on it, it's here. And he answered with 2 words. He said, dignity and respect. And I assured him that he was going to be treated with dignity and respect as long as he lived. Having worn a uniform for 26 years, I asked, what do you want to wear on this journey? I said, do you want to wear sweats? And he gave me a look, and he said, no. He said, I don't wear sweats now. And I said, well, what do you want to wear? He said, I want to wear a long sleeve Oxford shirt. I want a t-shirt underneath. I want belted jeans or khakis. I want it to zip up. He said, I want leather loafers, boots, or athletic shoes, and I want that every day. He said, and I asked, well, what about Velcro closures? Do you want Velcro closures? He gave me the same look. He said, no, I do not. He said, I want to be able to tie my own shoe for as long as I can tie my own shoe. And I said, okay, all right, we'll make sure that happens. And I understood, because everything is not lost at once. He enjoyed dressing sharp, and that was not lost when he was diagnosed. He could tie his own shoes. So he further requested that he be shaved, or he shave himself every single day and get regular haircuts. And those things are just part of respect and dignity. Communication and connection strategies were also a part of the care plan that our family developed. We created a plan to communicate with my husband based on 3 A's: awareness, acknowledgement, and assurance. So the awareness piece encompasses observing the whole person that is living with dementia. You have to look at them as a whole person, and then realizing that person is always aware throughout the disease. They do not lack awareness. So awareness of the person's habits as well as changes in behaviors, that can communicate their needs. Sometimes they are communicating with those changes. For instance, you might see some behavioral changes that are related to their cognitive deficit. So bowel and bladder incontinence could be traced back to short-term memory loss. He didn't forget how to use the bathroom. He forgot how to take off the belt, or he forgot where the bathroom was, or he forgot timing. Like, I feel this urgency. How quick do I need to get there? It's a timing thing. It wasn't an incontinence. It's the cognitive deficit. So then you look for shortcuts. Okay, how can we work around this? you look for the signs. When he starts pacing, oh, you got to go to the bathroom? Come on, let's go, And he had forgotten that I was his wife in the hospital, so I became a smoking hot girlfriend. And I was okay with that. I was okay with that. So I never called him husband. I told people, don't tell him that I'm his wife. It just confused things. And I'd say, hey, guy, or come on, fella, and can I help you? And he just thought I was this smoking hot girlfriend who helped him, whatever. And it worked, and that's what I did, and I helped him. So he could always feel that he got the typical reactions to needing to use the bathroom. He just couldn't have the typical result without some help. So we gave him the help. We got him there. And so even in the later stages, he always knew when he had to go to the bathroom. So prompts work. Even if language is lost or confused in the later stage, they are always aware of tone and intent of language used towards them. Because they are aware, the caregiver can protect them from communication in their presence that can affect them negatively, like harsh, abrupt, sarcastic, condescending, angry, and hopeless tones. I discovered my husband's awareness while he was in the hospital during diagnosis, and again when he was in the hospital after the onset of seizures in the later stages. Both times, he was hearing reports that sealed his fate, and he had a reaction that let us definitely know that he was aware of what was happening, and he was aware until his final breath. Because the person with dementia in the early and advanced stages is aware, they are also deserving of the second A, which is acknowledgement. They should be acknowledged as present, seen, and heard throughout their dementia journey. This is the respect and dignity we consistently communicated to my husband. Even when his short-term memory was only split seconds long, asking the same question numerous times or repeating himself in short spans of time, or he created a story that was huge, fabulous, and real to him, we acknowledge his experience. One time I said, I can see you are concentrating really, really hard. What's going on? And he said, with certainty and with extreme confidence, he said, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to take a meeting tomorrow morning with Snoop Dogg. And I acknowledged that he had a big decision to make. And I helped him process that he should probably take the meeting and enjoy the experience. So we acknowledge him each time we walk past him in a room. So just because he's not talking or just because he's not lost language, he's aware that we are walking in the room. So every time we have 3 kids, my sister moved here as soon as he was diagnosed, and my nephew. So we were always around him. So we'd give him a fist bump. Somebody would give him a smile. My daughter would pat him on the head. I would always touch him. I'd say hello, or sometimes I'd look at him and say, I see you. And he would just smile because he was acknowledged every time. Because he doesn't know how many times you said hello to him. It's not going to get on his nerves. He has short-term memory loss. So he needs to be acknowledged every time. And so we had a big flood in the house, and 2 contractors came. And one contractor walked around the house, took measurements, and my husband was sitting in a chair, never paid attention to him, never acknowledged him. The other contractor came in, shook his hand. You know who I hired? I hired the one who acknowledged my husband because he's deserving of acknowledgement. The third A is assurance. Dementia is a fear-based disease, and people are afraid to get it, and once they have it, they're afraid of what will happen to them. It's just fear-based. So a person living with dementia has a constant need for assurance because fear and paranoia can be all-consuming. So my husband was able to state that he was afraid because, 1, he was aware, 2, we communicated that what he reported would be responded to, that it was going to be responded to and acknowledged. And we also used a daily routine of assurance and positive affirmations as a strategy. So while everybody is worried that the person who has dementia is going to forget them, I was more concerned that my husband would forget how great he was. I didn't want him to forget him. And so early in the diagnosis, he asked, am I a good person? Oh no, you're never gonna wonder if you're a good person, because he was the best. He was dear. And so I had this script, and you can formulate your own script for your person, but our script was specific to him. And I was like, you are lauded. You are respected across the world. You have done great things for people globally. You have been a global social worker, and you've helped people your entire life. You are retired after a lauded career, and you have earned this retirement. You are safe. You don't owe anybody any money. Your finances are secure. You have money in the bank. You're in a house that you have provided for your family, and everything is taken care of. You don't have anything to fear, and we are always going to be here to protect you. And you just say it over and over. You don't say it once. We said it all day. And so if I left, I was like, I just say, just reassure him. And the kids would say it, and caregivers would say it. And we'd say it over and over, because he was deserving of that reassurance of who he was. So I told him, I said, we're not going to be so concerned that he forgets us. It is sad. It is. We call those zingers and stingers, because things happen that aren't fun. And we had a lot of zingers and stingers through the disease, but it was important that he know who he was. And he was treated like that every day. Every day. That was part of our care plan. You can write the script for your loved one. You can make it so that they are honored and remembered the way that they should be honored and remembered. And so everybody does that in their own way. Dementia does erode a person's confidence, and so you've got to find a script about your loved one that assures them. The 3 A's, awareness, acknowledgement, and assurance, tend to fall as an added responsibility to the caregiver. As a person living with dementia becomes increasingly apathetic. No caregiver will get it right every day. It's not going to happen, especially if they're dealing with past or current anger or abuse issues. So when I see somebody at Home Depot, when I see a man open the door for his wife, he's paying on the front end. He's putting it in on the front end, so that should he get something, she's going to remember. Is that me?
That's me. I'm
okay.
Sorry.
He's going to remember those things that she did. A wife that prepares her husband's dinner, he's going to remember that. In life, you either pay on the front end or the back end. It's just what I believe. And my husband put everything he had into being a good husband, a good son, a good brother, a good father, a good citizen. He put all of that on the front end. So it was our honor and privilege to take care of him. And so it's never too late to correct that. It's never too late to get right, treat people better. It's never too late. But he really did it on the front end. I got to work on it. I got to work on my part. So recognize that caregivers don't get it right every day. So what you've got to do is you've got to give yourself grace when you lose it, because you will. You just get back up and you begin again right then. And you got to forgive yourself, forgive them, and move forward. My husband's gentle nature really made the application of the 3 A's the best way for us to connect and communicate with him. I hope you find some use in understanding that they are always aware, in need of acknowledgement, and deserving of your assurance as they travel the course of the disease. Caregivers, the 3 A's will apply to the caregiver as well. Make people aware of your daily challenges and need for support. Acknowledge that you are doing the best you can with a nebulous adversity, and be assured that your caregiving journey matters, and so do you. So you have to remember that the disease does not make the person the most important. He's not the most important. And I learned that when my teenager, she was a teenager, I was a middle-aged woman, so we all got these hormone things going, and she just blew up one day, and she said, I know, Dad's the most important. And I was like, oh, she doesn't feel seen. She doesn't feel heard. And I was like, well, we have to change that. And so then I told all the kids, the disease does not make Dad the most important. He's the one that has the disease, but you're important, and I'm important. And so everybody is important. You can't make the person that has the disease. They're vulnerable, and they need help, and they need lots of reassurance, but they're not the most important. Everybody's important. So you just kind of change the trajectory of the family dynamic by reassuring everybody that they are important. And so that's what we did. If there were a fourth A, it would probably be acceptance. Accepting something that was given to you that you didn't pick. We did not pick Alzheimer's. If I was picking diseases, I would have picked bursitis, a case of gout. I would have picked a lot of different things, but I wouldn't have picked that. I would not have. But that's what we got. And so you don't ask to be on this journey. And so that acceptance part will come after you go through a myriad of thoughts, feelings, and reactions that are just going to be unique to your situation. Respite care and self-care, I believe, are imperative to the caregiver. There's not a nurse that works a 24-hour shift without days off. They have days off. And so to think that a caregiver can provide care without respite is insane. So you're going to be encouraged to take time for yourself, which has challenges, but it can and should be done. Mind, body, spirit wellness is really part of a healthy self-care regime. Taking walks or sitting outside, that's a no-cost escape. Naps are free if you can get one. Attending church online costs nothing and can be deeply encouraging. When my husband couldn't sit in church, and it was during COVID anyway, there were so many churches online. Those are greatly beneficial. They're greatly beneficial. So when Pastor Dave was in the chapel by himself, there we were watching, because you can watch online and still have a great benefit to your spirit. So I encourage that. A shower, fresh clothes, a change of clothes, that's self-care. An active prayer life through journaling, that was part of my self-care regime. Pouring out my heart's cries as the losses multiplied, that was just part of my days. Crying in the shower or over a cup of coffee with a friend, that's self-care. Gratitude will displace fear and anxiety. Gratitude was a huge contributing factor to my mental well-being. Each time I walked in the drugstore to pick up a prescription, I was intentionally grateful for all the medical supplies that I didn't have to touch, that I was able to pass up, and that I didn't have to buy. Jose was 50. He ran 5 to 7 miles a day, 3 times a week. He was healthy. There was nothing wrong with his physical person. It was the brain. That was the only thing that was affected. So with a strong body like that, there were so many things that we didn't have. He didn't have any secondary conditions. He didn't even wear glasses. He didn't have anything. He was strong and healthy. So I was also grateful for my degree in nursing. I was grateful because I think that in my career in the Army, that really kind of set me up to be able to put things in perspective and come up with a care plan that worked. We also had people all over the globe that were praying for our family, and that made us feel blanketed in love. We were extremely blessed and grateful to be surrounded by loving family, friends, and community. I asked God to show me something beautiful in every day, and every sunrise and every sunset served as reminders of God's faithfulness, as nothing in all creation has ever stopped the rising of the sun or the setting of the sun. The morning sun brings new mercies and fresh grace because the Lord's love for us never ceases. Read Lamentations 3:22 through 23. Seasons change, and the darkness of winter gives rise to the song of the universe, beginning again each spring. I'm grateful for the assurance that I've always found in God's word. A wounded healer. So one day, my husband and I, when we lived on the fort, we were sitting on the porch enjoying a cup of coffee that he had just made. He was the family barista for a long time, and he asked, "Am I dying?" And I said, "Not today." And he then asked, "What am I supposed to do now?" And I said, "What is it that you want to do?" And he said, his immediate reaction, his life's work had been as a global social worker and a public health servant for 26 years, and he'd responded to international and national disasters Like the things that happened with the hurricanes, that's what he would have responded to. He would lead those teams in response. And he just said, I want to help people. And I asked him to give me a minute to figure out how to help him do that, and I did. And so as we sat and we looked deeper into the window of dementia, we saw three things. Everything is not lost at once. It doesn't all just go away at one time. The most difficult aspects of dementia do not happen at the beginning. And so when people come to tell you about their grandmother or grandfather that had the disease, they're going to tell you about the worst thing that ever happened. Those things don't happen at the beginning. They don't even happen in the middle. So you're hearing about things, when you read the 36-hour day, it tells you all of the worst things. I read the book and I put it on the shelf. I didn't need to be reminded of the worst things when he wasn't living the worst things. So when somebody still has active living to do the active living. And the third thing is he was an able contributor to society who still had active living to do. And people that are diagnosed with dementia in the early to middle stages still have a lot of active living to do. So we started a 501c3 foundation called the Deeper Window Association that provides services to families braving dementia in Leavenworth County. We did that because I was driving 40 miles one way to Johnson County where the programs and our resources were. But our relationships were here. So sometimes you choose the relationships over the resources, and then you create the resources. So we created the resources. The Deeper Window currently offers 15 hours of respite to caregivers every week and 15 hours of opportunities to the people that are living with dementia. And we charge a nominal fee of $10 a day, which does not cover the cost of the program, but we receive generous donations. I came in Thursday to help set up for the Wingtips Widows Ministry, and unbeknownst to me, I picked up a very, very, very generous check from this congregation. And God always provides. And so the Deeper Window Association doesn't have to monetize people's need or desperation because we have a community that has rallied and has supported since we've launched this effort. And it is a successful effort. It is not fading. It is getting stronger. Jose was an active participant in all of the programs until the disease advanced too far and he lost language. The two hardest decisions on the dementia journey are long-term care placement and hospice. And so I call this the line and the promise. Placement is the first hardest decision that a caregiver will make. After myriad conversations while Jose was most able, we discussed placement and what line was going to be the boundary for us to consider long-term care decisions. I never made a promise to never place him. I never made that promise. The only promise made was that I was going to do the best I could for as long as I could. Your boundary line may be incontinence, it may be elopement, it may be verbal abuse or physical threats. Because there was no behavioral variant in Jose's case. So our boundary line for placement considerations were the following. Safety was the first thing. If the home became unsafe physically for us or for him, we'd investigate placement. Behaviors. If the behavior became unsafe or poorly managed by medication or distraction, then we'd have to consider placement. If the physical demands of his care exceeded my physical ability, then we would have to consider placement. I was not going to do caregiving if I had a long-term illness, an injury, or I wasn't going to be able to do it. So that would mean we'd have to consider placement. He was never placed in long-term care, but he took a traumatic fall at home, which led to the second hardest decision to make, which was hospice care. So I was advocating I wanted a true hospice care experience. And the VA, they feel like they offer hospice care. It's not even close. And so because he was a veteran, it was really hard. I just wanted hospice care. I wanted his end to be what it needed to be. And it's really hard to get that when people aren't trained to give the end that he needed. So in the end, he did end up going to the VA, but because I was vocal, I mean, they tried. They did their very, very best. I won't negate how hard they tried to make it feel like hospice, but it wasn't, because I know that all the other people that I know that have had a hospice experience, it's just so different. I've never even heard from them again. So advocate for your loved one to have the end that they deserve, because that's still an important part of dignity and respect all the way to the end. So as tough decisions are made with a brutal, nebulous adversity, this is what I say. I still believe that God is sovereign, that he's faithful, and that he is true in all of this. So that's our journey, and that's how we journeyed through this. I hope you found something that was helpful. I do have the deeper window handouts that I wanted you to receive, and I gave you the Alzheimer's 1-800 number. My phone number is on the deeper window brochure. You can always reach out if you have questions beyond this. Do you have any questions now? Yes?
Elaine, do you have recommendations for families when the relationship between, say, like an adult child and their aging parent, they weren't good?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was friction between them, or dad and daughter didn't get on well, and now here we are at this stage, and there's a lot to kind of get through under, the past.
Mm-hmm.
But dad, like the adult parent, doesn't know. They don't remember what they said or what they did, but the adult child does.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that? Just reconciliation or?
Well, when a dementia diagnosis comes, you're going to get one of two things. You're going to either get more of what the person was, which means if they were difficult, you may get more difficult. And if they were gentle and kind, you're going to get more gentle and kind. Or you're going to get the opposite of what they were. So if they were gentle and kind, they may become aggressive and not kind. Or if they were mean, now suddenly they're nice. So now you're dealing with your memories intact, theirs is not. And so Mercy says you try to find a way to navigate through that. Some people are just not going to be able to care for somebody that was abusive. They're not going to be able to do that. That means placement is going to happen. That means placement is going to happen at some point. It's just that placement is costly. So you have to figure out what that's going to look like. How are we going to place somebody that when the price could be $11,000 a month? So that's not always the easy part. So a lot of times what we'll have is we'll have a caregiver who has all of these unresolved issues of the past caring for somebody. And that is hard. That is hard. That person needs a ton of communities. They need a lot of support. They need counseling, because what is that the person with dementia? They're vulnerable. So now they're vulnerable to neglect and abuse and retaliation. They're vulnerable. There's no quick answer to that. And again, this journey without Jesus, I don't see how it happens. It can't be good. It can't be good because, Jose was the nicest person in the world, and you still get frustrated by all that you're dealing with. You're human. So it taps into every human emotion, and it wears on you. If you have back history, we didn't have poison. We didn't have any poison in our marriage. So I didn't recall him calling me any names. I didn't recall any outbursts. The kids didn't recall any. There was nothing to recall. That's the best case scenario. Other people don't have that, and that is a harder thing. I would encourage them that it is a chance for reconciliation, that you can be bigger, you can be better, and it can end on your terms, which can be hopeful. but they need a lot of support to do it. Anyone else?
When you mentioned about the hospice team, are you aware of any kind of special training that they receive from the Alzheimer Association? Do they go, do they go around to different hospice teams and make sure that they're aware of basically different, different outlooks to look at for dementia and all those different stuff? And along that line, is the family be a part of that, so they could, kind of present things that he was used to having when he was,
Oh, the hospice team would absolutely listen and take all of that in. And I'm going to be followed by Kristen, and she's going to talk about hospice and how it can look when it's done right, because I know that it can look quite beautiful. Ours was different, but it wasn't bad. God is always merciful and always good. And it ended up being what Jose needed. When he said that he wanted to be treated with dignity and respect, he died in the VA. So when he died, me being me, I didn't go tell them that he had passed. So I did all the things. I shaved him, I combed his hair, and I washed his feet. And I did all the things that a wife would do. And I stayed with him and prayed with him for an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. And then I went and told him, my husband passed at 8:59 this morning. And then they came in, and then they did the things. But I wanted to have the time that I wanted. And so that's what I did. Well, then after all of that was done, they came and they draped his bed with a flag, and they stood guard. And they had an honor walk for him, and they rang it through the VA. That wouldn't have happened. So it was the honor and dignity that he deserved, and it was right. It was right in the end. And I'm grateful, and my kids were there. Yes?
Well, it's very scary all the way up to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the grief aspect afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So how does
Okay.
that system work?
So that's where I am now. So now I am in the grief aspect of it. So this is my second year. My husband died in 2022, in September of 2022. And so this September was the second year. And the first year was really just trying to reimagine. You spend your life trying to reimagine it with this disease in it. And now you try to reimagine your life with him not in it, the disease is not in it, my kids, our nest is empty, all the dreams and hopes that you have for the golden years, none of that's there. None of that is there. I have to reimagine this life in grief without my husband. And it's difficult to reimagine, but it is something that I take to God in lots of prayer. So one of the things that I do is I go on a grief sabbatical. So the first year I didn't want to be in town in September because our anniversary is in September. He died in September. My mother's birthday is in September. She died the year before he died. And my daughter's birthday's in September. I just don't want to be in community when I can go into the grocery store and then I have to say, hi, how are you doing? If I want to be in grief, I have to leave and then I can be in grief. I can be in grief in Chicago because nobody knows me. So I go on a grief sabbatical for 2 weeks and I check in with myself and I pour out my heart to God. I tell him all the things. And so I did that for the first year, and I did it for the second year. And one Friday I was in Walmart buying a card, and it happened to be Valentine's. I just didn't recognize it was close to February, and I went to get a birthday card, and I see all these, my lovely sweetheart, sugar, honey, baby cards, trying to get a birthday card, and I don't want to see all that. And so I already don't like Fridays because Fridays are for families, and I don't feel like I'm a family. It's just me, and that's all part of grief. And you're alone and by yourself, and those are difficult things. And so I'm like, well, God, what are my Fridays supposed to look like? They're not fun. So what are they supposed to look like? And God gave me this vision for wingtips. In the middle of the night, I hear wingtips, and I write out Widows Igniting New Growth Through Inspirational Peer Support. And I call Pastor Dave and Ed, and I say, can I come talk to you about something? And they said, sure, come talk to us. And I did. I said, what do you do for widows? And they said, nothing. I said, would you like to do something for widows? And they said, yes. And I said, well, could you start with a Galentine's dinner for widows? And they said, yeah, sure. What is that? What is Galentine's? And I said, I want you to pay for dinner. I want you to buy chocolate, and I want you to buy flowers for widows. And they said, well, how many widows? I said, how many do you want to pay for? And they said, how about 30? So I said, okay, well, for 30. So I didn't know 30 widows. I just invited as many people as I knew that were widows, and then they invited widows. And we had a Galentine's dinner for 30 widows. And they came. And they wondered, why would somebody be so generous to them? Why would people do this for them? Some had been widowed for 25 years and said, nobody's ever done this. So why would you do this? I said, you're worthy of being seen. You're worthy of being heard. And you're going through something hard. So why don't we just do it together on a Friday, since I don't like Fridays? So we've been meeting, and I just go and I just knock on a church's door, and I just offer them the opportunity. We needed a host site, and First United Methodist Church was willing to make this the host site. And so we have a base. So when you have a base, then the women know where to come. I did ask a church last month if they would host yesterday's dinner. They wanted us to move it to their church. They wanted men to minister to women. I was like, no, that's not what this is. And I just said, no, thank you. And I just went to another group. And so in all of this, what I'm saying in my grief is that I am most honest with God. I am most honest with him. I tell him everything that is hurting, everything that is painful, everything that is hard. I am living a life. I didn't pray for this, and I pray a lot, but I didn't pray for this. And so he knows that I am enduring something that is not familiar to me, but I am not afraid to tell him every single thing that's on my heart and mind. And so that is how I am navigating grief. I did go to Grief Share. I go to another grief group. I am in counseling because I think that helps. I think just being honest about grief is the start. So that's my encouragement. Be honest about grief. Be as honest as you can. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.